Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well, and as per usual, I'm Michael, and this is Michael's Matters. So thanks for joining us. Now over the weekend, we got some big news regarding exactly how much the cost of basically everything is going up in our country. And for those of you who may work with or have a strong interest, or maybe even be in a senior community, it spells out one thing: the need for more help for our seniors and retirees, and the likelihood of an even bigger cost of living adjustment, or COLA, for the coming year of 2023. This would help those Americans on Social Security retirement, Social Security disability, and SSI to better adjust to these higher prices. Because look, the prices for everything is going up, but specifically for seniors who have costs like healthcare and prescriptions and Medicare, the monthly cost for them is getting bigger and bigger, even above and beyond all the other higher prices that the average American feels. So today we're going to talk about the most recent inflation numbers from the Fed and just how big a cost of living adjustment, or COLA, would need to be for 2023 for people on Social Security benefits and seniors to be able to make ends meet in this rapidly rising price environment. Now, this is Michael's Matters. And before we get to it, if you like these videos, if you find them interesting, helpful, or at least useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And that way you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. So this last Friday, we got a pretty big bombshell of news from the Labor Department regarding the staggering rate of inflation that we're all feeling here in the US. In fact, for the month of May, the most current inflation numbers that we have right now, it came out to show that we are experiencing the highest rate of inflation since 1981, which may feel like a flashback for some of those folks out there who lived through it back in the day. But for people who don't know what that's like, including myself, this is an absolute shock. And according to the Labor Department, in their monthly CPI report, which is the Consumer Price Index, it came out to show an increase of 8.6% for May over the last year's inflation rate, so last year's May. Of course, this is something that we all know and feel intuitively. It's something that we feel every single time we go to buy gas, we go to buy groceries, or even have to pay rent. Now, one group of folks who are undoubtedly hit hardest by this newest inflation number are seniors, who many times rely on a fixed income to help them month to month to pay their bills. Right now, across the country, about 9 out of every 10 Americans over the age of 65 are receiving some sort of Social Security retirement benefit. And out of those 90% of Americans who are over the age of 65, Social Security retirement benefits represent an average of 30% of their income. While for 12% of retired men and 15% of retired women, they rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. So seniors are already in a difficult situation, especially because of these increased high prices. Also because they're not able to work more hours, they're not really able to pick up a second job or work overtime, so their incomes are set. And the only increases that they can get is set yearly by a COLA, or that cost of living adjustment. This takes effect at the beginning of the year and is meant to try to help seniors to pay their bills and live with dignity. Unfortunately, though, the COLA is really the only tool that the federal government has to help seniors, but it doesn't accurately reflect the costs that seniors truly have in the real world, and thus it never provides enough benefit for them to live respectively. But at the moment, the COLA is directly attached to this new CPI numbers that just came out, and it shows that even after last year, which was one of the biggest COLA jumps in recent history, that for 2023, it's likely going to need to be even bigger. The final COLA numbers, of course, are not going to come out until October, but looking at the inflation patterns for these first 5 months out of the year, we can already see that this year's COLA is really going to be the best way, and probably one of the only ways, to help people on Social Security retirement, Social Security disability, SSI, and other type pensions that are fixed to it. Because we can see that Congress right now, it doesn't have much drive. It doesn't have much impetus, and it doesn't even really have much ability to get any additional benefits out. Things that could potentially help seniors. Maybe an expanded senior food stamp benefit, or 65 plus stimulus checks, or a freeze on Medicare. It just doesn't look like there's a political viability for that. Now, there's a quote here from the chief actuary of the Social Security Administration, Stephen Grouse, who said, quote, "Looking at the CPI-W trends we're seeing so far this year, it is likely that we will have a COLA that is closer to 8% than 3.8%, end quote. This quote was actually taken before the new CPI numbers came out, but with the current CPI at 8.6%, it means that the 2023 COLA will need to be more now than ever, even closer than 8%, if not higher, which is truly an understatement. But the staggering thing is that he mentions that this rate will be closer to 8% than 3.8%. In what world are they anticipating that they will only need to have a COLA that increased by 3.8%? Well, actually, you know what, Michael? I'm glad you asked, because last year in the annual report from the Social Security and Medicare trustees, they projected that the rate of cost of living adjustment, or COLA, would only need to increase by 3.8% in 2023, and that's next year, which at this point would be more of an insult, essentially a slap to seniors and retirees, than it would be a help. Now, to be fair to the trustees, though, this estimation was based off the world that was set in 2021 rather than in 2022. That includes things like a conflict in Europe, shifts in the workforce, gas, rent, food prices, and all those things rocketing off the chart that are all driving up inflation faster than literally anybody had thought it would. So the real question is, what does this mean for the COLA? Because in a pretty direct way, the COLA for 2023 is directly connected with the rate of inflation, more specifically the CPIW, which is the Consumer Price Index for the average urban clerical worker. This metric is one of the fundamental ways that the COLA is adjusted on a yearly basis, but it's also one of its biggest flaws. So the COLA is really only based off the amount of inflation via the CPIW for 3 months out of the year. They take the CPIW for the months of July, August, and September from the current year, so in this case 2022, then they compare it to one from the months before those same months, July, August, September, in 2021. And then the difference between those two periods amounts to what the COLA ends up being for the future year, 2023. The COLA is not announced, though, until October, but given all the information that we have right now, we can try to prognosticate by this inflation curve what we can see the monthly cost or what the new raised amount will be for Social Security benefits. So really, the important thing to think is that these months right now, they actually don't matter, because the only 3 months that do matter, that are compared, are July, August, and September, but these are great indicators. Now, are we going to get the 8% flat increase in COLA? It's possible. And in fact, if we do get an 8% flat increase in the COLA, let's talk about what that's going to look like starting January 2023 and how that could actually put more money into a Social Security or retirement benefit. So right now, the current average Social Security check for 2022 is at $1,658. This would be for a single person. If we were to get an 8% increase, if not higher, but let's say with 8%, it'd mean that starting January 2023, the average Social Security check would go up by $132.64, putting the average 2023 Social Security check at just below $1,800 at $1,790 per month. Now, remember, these are averages, and in real-world terms, nobody is actually average. So if your Social Security check now is lower, or if it's higher than these numbers, it could mean that you will actually end up getting more or less, because it's still an 8% increase wherever you're at. Now, that being said, 8% is just an estimate. I mean, we can see how things changed in just the span of a few months. In July and August, September could see some pretty severe price spikes, as some economists predict. Now let's get back to one of the inherent flaws in how the COLA is calculated and why it matters to your Social Security benefit check, because it most assuredly does. The fundamental flaw lies in the CPIW, because the CPIW basically looks at what the average urban worker buys throughout the year, a basket of specific goods, and then compiles their prices and compares them year over year, things like food, alcohol, shampoo, succulents, things that average urban workers buy. But what it doesn't do is include the specific costs that seniors have at higher levels. So for example, healthcare. The average senior over the age of 65 spends more than double the cost of the average American on their healthcare costs. The average 75-year-old American spends nearly 3 times as much on healthcare than the average American. This increased exposure to healthcare costs is not reflected in the CPIW. Now, to make matters worse, with the current calculations, excluding this year's inflation hikes, the Medicare Trustees Report expects that by 2095, 40% of a retiree's Social Security check is going to be consumed just by Medicare out-of-pocket costs. I mean, even today, around 23% of Social Security benefits are already currently being eaten up by Medicare costs, so it's only going to get worse. So, the question is, what is the solution to help improve this? Well, there's a couple different ones, but the main one that's been kind of bandied around for the last, maybe say 40 years, is something called the CPIE, which is a CPIW in most ways, except for it looks at a basket of goods that are purchased more commonly by seniors. It's as simple as that. Well, it's actually really complicated, but the change to CPIE would put more money into seniors and retirees' pockets so that they can actually afford those increasing costs that they feel disproportionately. Changing the CPIE for the purposes of the COLA would mean that Social Security benefits better reflect those costs borne by retirees. In fact, in 2014, the CPIE was calculated for the years 1982 through 2014. And then it was compared with the CPIW, and they found that the CPIE for those years was 0.2 points higher, 2.9% for those years, rather than that 2.7% that was calculated for the standard CPIW. In short, what it means is the CPIE would mean more money and a better, more accurate reflection of what the costs of seniors have when they go to calculate the COLA. So overall, yes, it's good that the COLA is probably going to be one of the biggest COLAs in recent memory. But it's also pretty bad. It means that the economy, the country, and all of us are living in an environment that is getting more and more expensive, faster than it should, which again is bad. Also means that the longer it persists, no matter what the federal government decides to do to try to slow down the inflation rate, it's gonna hurt. By this I mean that the only two options the federal government has is to either let inflation go and we all pay out the nose in perpetuity, or pull the parachute on the economy and bring it to a screeching halt, and possibly a recession. So whichever decision they decide to make, it is going to be hard to believe that with the current calculation for the COLA for 2023, it will, in fact, be enough to ensure that our seniors are able to cover their costs, get the health care that they need, and live out their golden years in the comfort that they deserve. Now, this has been Michael's Matters, and I hope that you found it interesting, helpful, or at least useful. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when my newest and most informative videos become available. So for Michael's Matters, I'm Michael, hoping that you take care of yourself, take care of others, and have a happy, healthy